Do you know that moment when you've already decided to give up on everything? I was exactly like that last night, with a noose around my neck, literally. But then the phone rang. It was a ride, and that ride changed everything. If you're going through a tough time right now, stick with me, because what happened in the next 12 hours is going to give you chill and maybe, just maybe, save your life too. My name is Rodrigo. I'm a rideshare driver in a bustling city in the heartland of the US. And this is the story of the shift that brought me back from the dead. I'll be honest with you from the start. In March of 2024, my life completely fell apart. My wife, Leticia, the most incredible woman who ever existed, died in a car accident on her way home from work. A drunk driver ran a red light on a busy avenue and took her along with my dream, my plan, my will to live. Leticia was a nurse at the local general hospital. She was 35, had a smile that lit up any room, and the patience of a saint with me. We'd been together for 12 years, married for 8. We were planning to have kids at the end of the year. She had even chosen the names. If it was a boy, it would be Michael. If it was a girl, it would be Sophia. Rodrigo, she'd always say. Our children will have the strength of an archangel and the wisdom of life. After the accident, I entered a downward spiral that seemed to have no end. I stopped eating right. I stopped showering regularly. I stopped talking to my family and friends. My mom, Mrs. Mary, who lives a couple of towns over, called every day crying, begging me to get help. But how do you get help when you feel like your soul has been ripped from your chest? Working as a rideshare driver was the only thing that kept me minimally functional. I'd sit in the car, listening to loud music, driving all over the city, pretending everything was okay. But inside, inside I was dying a little bit more each day. The nights were the worst. I'd get home to our small apartment and everything reminded me of her. Her favorite coffee mug in the sink, her toothbrush still in the bathroom, her clothes that I couldn't bring myself to donate. I slept on the couch because the bed still smelled like her. It was on one of those terrible nights, September 15th, that I made the decision. I couldn't take the pain anymore. It was a physical pain, you know, like someone had plunged a knife into my chest and was twisting it round. I grabbed a rope from the closet, tied a knot, and stood on a chair. But then at the exact moment I was about to take that final step, my phone rang. It was the app, a ride. I stared at the screen thinking, seriously? Even when I'm trying to die, a job comes up. For some reason I still can't explain. I got down from the chair and accepted the ride. I thought, oh, I'll do one last shift, 12 hours driving around the city, meeting people, and then I'll finish what I started. I left the house at 7 p.m. with a full tank and an empty heart. I had no idea I was about to live the 12 most important hours of my life. I didn't know that 5 complete strangers were going to show me that the pain I felt wasn't exclusively mine, and that there was a way to carry it without being crushed by it. The first ride was nearby. An elderly lady of about 70 standing at the door of a simple house. When I arrived, she was already waiting on the sidewalk with a small suitcase and a smile that completely contrasted with my state of mind. "Good evening, son. Are you Rodrigo?" she asked, approaching the car. "That's me, Mum. Where are we headed?" "To the airport, dear. I'm going to visit my daughter in another state." I helped her put the suitcase in the trunk. She was tiny, maybe 5 feet tall, with grey hair tied in a bun, and an energy that didn't match her age. When she got in the car, I noticed her hands were shaking a little, but the smile remained. "Sorry to ask, ma'am, but aren't you nervous? Traveling at night like this?" She laughed, a hearty, infectious laugh that makes you smile a lot. "Nervous? My son, at my age, nervous is a word that no longer exists in my vocabulary, and that's how I met Cora, the woman who, without knowing it, planted first seed." If you're listening to this story and identifying with anything in it, don't stop. Stick with, because what's coming will surprise as much as it sometimes puts people in the exact right moment, and you'll understand what I mean. As we headed toward the airport, traffic was light for a Saturday night. Mrs. Socorro was silent for a few minutes, looking out the window at the city light. I tried to focus on the GPS, but I couldn't get what I'd almost done at home out of my head. The rope was still there, waiting for my return. "My son," she said suddenly, "you look very sad. Did something happen?" I almost choked. How could a stranger see right through me so easily? I decided to be honest, at least partially. "Oh, Mrs. Socorro, it's just, I lost my wife a few months ago. I'm still a bit lost." She made a sound of understanding, one of those that comes from deep in the soul. "How old are you, Rodrigo?" 38? 38, she repeated, as if processing the information. "I was exactly your age when I lost my first husband, cancer. We were married for 15 years, had 3 children. I thought the world had ended. I looked in the rearview mirror and saw that her eyes were watery, but she was still smiling. How did you manage to get through it?" "Who said I got through it?" she asked, catching me off guard. "The pain of loss isn't something you get through, my son. You learn to carry it in a way that doesn't kill you. It's different." We stopped at a red light. I took the opportunity to turn around and look at her properly. Mrs. Socorro had wrinkles around her eyes, but they were wrinkles from a person who had smiled a lot in life. "After my husband passed, I had 3 young children to raise on my own. The youngest was only 5. I didn't have time to feel sorry for myself, you know. Either I got up and moved forward, or my children would go hungry. And you managed to raise them all?" "I did. They all went to college and got married. Today they're all adults with their own families. My youngest daughter, Carla, is a doctor in another state. She's the one I'm going to visit." The light turned green and we continued on our way. Mrs. Socorro started telling me details of her life that left me impressed. She worked as a housekeeper, a cleaning lady, a cook, anything to support her children. Sometimes she worked 2 or 3 jobs a day. "But Mrs. Socorro, didn't you ever get remarried?" "Oh, I did. At 52, I met Mr. Giraldo, also a widower with 2 children. We met at a block party. He was a good man. He made me laugh after a very long time. And what was it like? Wasn't it strange to love again?" She thought for a moment before answering. "Look, Rodrigo, I'll tell you something that might be hard for you to understand right now. The love I felt for Manuel and the love I felt for Giraldo were completely different. Not better, not worse, just different. Our heart has an incredible capacity to expand. And Mr. Giraldo, he passed away 2 years ago, 83 years old. He died in his sleep without suffering. Was I sad? Of course. Did I cry? A lot, but it wasn't the same desperation as the first time. I already knew it was possible to survive the pain. We arrived at the airport earlier than I expected. Her flight wasn't until 10:30 p.m., but she said she liked to arrive early. I helped her with her suitcase and walked her to the terminal entrance. "Rodrigo," she said, holding my arm with her 2 small hands, "I want to tell you something. Your wife, what was her name?" Leticia. Leticia, a beautiful name. She wouldn't want to see you like this, destroyed. I can say this because I know it's true. We women, when we love truly, we want to see our men happy, alive, fulfilled. Even after we've gone, I felt a lump in my throat. "But how, Mrs. Socorro? How do I do that?" "You don't do anything right now. Right now, you just breathe, one day at a time. Healing comes slowly, like a plant growing. And look, I'll tell you a secret. I started truly living after I turned 70. "What do you mean?" "At 70, I decided I was going to travel. I'd never left."
Can you imagine? I've been to many different places. Next week I'm going to Europe with a senior citizen group. Can you believe it? Europe. She laughed like a child talking about Christmas presents. "You know what I learned, my son? That life phases. The first phase, the second I was a mother. The third I was a hard-working widow. The fourth I was a wife again. Fifth I was a widow again. And now I'm Socorro. Just Socorro. And I'm discovering."
But this Socorro still has a lot of living to do. She gave me a tight hug, one of those that makes you feel like the person truly cares. "Promise me one thing. Promise me you'll try. It doesn't have to be today. It doesn't have to be tomorrow. But promise me you'll try." "I promise, Mrs. Socorro." "And one more thing," she said, already walking away. "If one day you feel very, very bad, call your mom. That's what mothers are for, to carry the weight with us." I got back in the car, completely shaken up inside. Mrs. Socorro had planted something in me, a tiny seed of hope that I hadn't felt in months. It wasn't healing yet, but it was a start. I turned the app back on. The next ride was already waiting. The second ride of the night was downtown. The passenger's name was Julio, and from his profile on the app, he seemed young. When I arrived at the address, a simple middle-class apartment building, I saw a guy in his mid-20s in a wheelchair, waiting on the sidewalk with a backpack and a laptop. "Hey, Rodrigo, how's it going, man?" He greeted me with that energy typical of young people from the city. "Everything's good, Julio. Do you need a hand getting in the car?" No, I'll manage. Just open the trunk for me to put the chair away." I was impressed by how fast he was. In less than 2 minutes, he had transferred from the wheelchair to the car, disassembled it, stored it in the trunk, and gotten into the back seat, all with a naturalness that made me feel a little awkward. "Where are we headed?" "The mall. I have a meeting there." "A meeting at this time on a Saturday?" "Yeah, man. Entrepreneur life doesn't have a schedule, especially when you're just starting out." As we drove, Julio started working on his laptop. The screen was facing me, and I could see it was some kind of app or website. "You work in tech?" "Exactly. I'm developing an app called Accessible Wheel. It's like a Waze, but specifically for people with disabilities. It shows which places in the city have real accessibility, not just on paper." I thought the idea was brilliant. "How did you come up with that?" Julio gave a slightly bitter laugh. "Necessity, you know. You can't imagine how many times I've arrived at a place that was supposedly accessible and couldn't get in, or there was a ridiculously steep ramp, or the door was too narrow, or the adapted bathroom was being used as a storage closet." "Makes sense. And how's the project going?" "Man, I'm not gonna lie, it's tough. I got a small investor, but the money is running out. The meeting tonight is with a guy from out of town who might fund the app's expansion. If it works out, we'll go national." We got stuck in traffic near the sports arena. I took the opportunity to ask something that had been on the tip of my tongue since he got in the car. "Julio, can I ask a personal question?" "Sure, man, go for it." "Were you born like this, or was it an accident?" "Accident. I was 17. I was on my way home from school."
On my motorcycle, car cut me. I flew off the bike, hit a tree, spinal cord injury. Wow, man, how did you deal with that? Julio closed his laptop and stared out the window a few seconds before "Look, Rodrigo, I'll be honest with you. The first 2 years were the worst of my life. Severe depression, suicidal thoughts, mad at the whole world. My parents worked their butts off to help, spent all their savings on treatment, physical therapy, a psychologist, and what? I met some people at a local association for people with... Man, there were people there in much worse situations than me, but they were living, you know? They were working, dating, traveling, achieving their dream. That's when it hit me. Traffic started moving again, and we headed toward the mall. What hit you? That I had 2 options. Either I spent the rest of my life lamenting what I'd lost, or I started going after what was still possible. And man, you have no idea.
"How much is still possible? Tell me." "Dude, after the accident I learned fluent Spanish, got a degree in information systems, learned to code, traveled to 5 different states, and I'm dating an incredible girl, Raquel, also in a wheelchair, and now I'm running my own company." I felt so small hearing that. Here was a guy who had gone through a real tragedy, who had lost the use of his legs at 17 and was chasing his dreams, and me, who was still healthy, who could still walk, run.
Work, I was wanting to give up. And don't you ever get some miss how it was before? Of course I do. Sometimes I wake up and for a few seconds I forget I'm in a wheelchair. Then reality hits. Does it hurt? It hurts like hell. But you know what I learned? Pain is part of it, but it doesn't have to be the center. While Julio assembled a chair, he continued to talk. "Rodrigo, can I tell you something? You look..."
"You're going through a rough time. It was amazing how people could read my emotional state so easily." "Yeah, I lost my wife a few months ago." "Damn, man, I'm really sorry." He paused. "Look, I'm not going to fill your head with advice because every pain is different. But can I tell you one thing that helped me a lot?" "Go for it." "A psychologist from the association told me a phrase I'll never forget. You can't control what happens to you, but you can control how you respond to what
happened. First, I thought it was the biggest load of crap, but over time, it's liberating. Julio grabbed his bag and prepared to leave. And another thing, if your wife truly loved you, and I'm sure she did, she wouldn't want to see you, she'd want to see you living, honoring the memory of the love you had. They were almost the same words, as Mrs. Cora said, a different one, but with the same. "Julio, can I ask you a silly
question?" "Sure. Are you happy?" He smiled, a genuine smile that lit up his whole face. "Man, I am happy. Not in the way I imagined I'd be happy at 17, but I am. And you know why? Because I decided I would be. It's as simple as that." He gave me a friendly punch on the shoulder before getting out of the car. It's all gonna work out for you, man. Trust me. I stayed parked in the mall lot for about 5 minutes after he left, processing everything I'd heard. Two people, two completely different stories, but the same message. It's possible to survive pain and still find reasons to live. The app buzzed, third ride of the night. The third ride was downtown, right by the waterfront. The address was one of those fancy high-rises you only see from a distance. The passenger's name was Marina, and when she got in the car, I immediately noticed she was a doctor by the lab coat she was carrying. "Good evening, Rodrigo. Can you take me to the suburbs, please?" "Of course, doctor." "Tough shift today?" "You could say that," she replied, settling into the back seat with a tired sigh. Marina looked to be about 40, with brown hair in a messy ponytail, and the pallor typical of someone who works a lot and sleeps little. But there was something more than just physical exhaustion. I recognized it because I carried it myself. It was the emotional weight of someone who has been through a lot. "Where do you work, doctor?" "The local general hospital. Emergency room." My heart skipped a beat. It was the same hospital where Leticia had worked. "Oh, I know that place well. My late wife worked there too, nursing." Marina straightened up in her seat. "What was her name? Maybe I knew her." Leticia Santos." "Leticia," she repeated thoughtfully. "Short, curly hair, always with a smile on her face." My chest tightened. "That's the one." Oh my God, Rodrigo, I did know Leticia. An incredible person, always very helpful and so caring with her patient.
What happened to her? I told her. Marina was silent, then said, "I'm so sorry, truly. I remember her as one of the most compassionate nurses I ever met." We were silent a few minutes, each lost in our own thought, until Marina started talking, almost as if she were talking to herself. "You know, Rodrigo, sometimes I think I chose medicine for the wrong reason." "You mean?" "I went into medicine wanting to save her. I wanted to be the hero who would
save lives, who would make a difference. But after 15 years working in the ER, man, we lose more people than we save. That must be a heavy burden." "It is. And it's not just that. There's something I've never told anyone, not even my psychologist." I didn't know whether I should encourage her to continue or change the subject. I chose to stay quiet and let her decide. "When I was 8 years old," she continued, her voice trembling, "my younger brother, Peter, drowned at the lake. I was watching him while my parents were talking to some friend for 5 minutes. Just 5 minutes. I stopped looking. I felt a pang in my chest. I realized Marina was telling me something she'd been carrying for decades. When I looked back, he wasn't there anymore. I ran around looking, screaming his name. By the time they found him, it was too late. He was only 5 years old." "Wow, Marina, that's a terrible situation. My parents never blamed me, at least not openly, but I always knew that deep down they did, and I blame myself too. I still do." We were driving on a major highway, still far from her destination. Marina continued, "That's why I became a doctor. I thought if I saved enough lives, I would somehow make up for the life I couldn't save. Peter's, and it doesn't make up for it." She laughed, but it was a sad laugh. "Rodrigo, every person who dies on my shift, I see Peter's little face. Every family I have to give bad news to, I relive that day at the lake. It's like
I've been trapped in an emotion prison for over 30 years. Have you tried therapy? I have several times. I've taken antidepressants, anti-anxiety meds. I've done cognitive therapy, psychoanalysis. I even tried hypnosis. Nothing completely resolved. The guilt is always like a shadow." We stopped traffic. Marina continued talking. "You know what's funny? I'm recognized as one of the best emergency doc state. I've saved hundreds of lives, but when I look in
the mirror, all I see is the sister who couldn't protect her little brother." "Marina, can I tell you something? You were 8 years old." "I know. Rationally, I know that. But the heart doesn't understand reason sometimes. It was incredible how our pains were different, but at the same time similar. She carried guilt. I carried emptiness. But both feelings had the same weight. And how do you manage to keep going, working every day with life and death? Because it's the only thing I know how to do. And because, even with all the pain, I still believe I can make a difference. Every life I save is a small victory against that day at the lake." "Have you ever thought about giving up?" Marina looked at me through the rearview mirror. "You mean suicide?" I nodded. "Yes, many times, especially in the first years after Peter's accident. But you know what stopped me? The certainty that if I did that, I'd be killing not only myself, but also all the people I could still save in the future." We arrived on her street, a simple, well-maintained house with a small garden in the front. "Marina, can I ask you a kind of philosophical question?" "Sure." "Do you think we can forgive ourselves for things that weren't exactly our fault?" She thought for a moment. Look, Rodrigo, I'm still learning that. But one thing I recently discovered, forgiveness isn't forgetting. Forgiveness is accepting that we are human, that we make mistakes, that we're not God, and that even with our mistakes and pains, we still deserve to live. Marina got out of the car, but before closing the door, she said, Rodrigo, I don't know what pain you're carrying besides the loss of your wife, but I can see in your eyes that it's big. I just want you to know that talking to you tonight did me good. Sometimes sharing the pain makes it lighter. And that's the thing, folks. By this point, 3 people had crossed my path that night, and each of them was showing me that pain is universal, but that it's also possible to carry it without being crushed. If you're going through something similar right now, stay tuned because the story isn't over yet. And maybe, just maybe, you'll find something in the next word that helps you too. It was almost midnight when the 4th ride appeared. The passenger's name was Antonio, and the pickup location was a house in a traditional neighborhood. When I got there, I saw a man of about 65, well dressed, in a light blue button-down shirt and a shy smile on his face. Good evening, young man. Are you Rodrigo? That's me, Mr. Antonio. How are you? Oh, I'm great. Nervous, but great. He got in the car carrying a small box wrapped in gift paper and a bouquet of yellow flowers. Where are we going? To Mrs. Consuelo's house. It's a few blocks away. I could tell by the way he pronounced the woman's name that there was something special going on. Mr. Antonio had that twinkle in his eye, typical of someone in love. Special occasion? He smiled like a teenager. Well, it's a bit complicated to explain. Mrs. Consuelo and I are, what do young people call it now? Seeing each other? Couldn't help but laugh. It was so cute to see a 65-year-old man talking about seeing someone. And how long has this been going on? 3 months. But man, I feel like I'm 15 again. I get anxious to see her. I think about her all day. I can't sleep when I don't talk to her on the phone. That's great, Mr. Antonio. And how did you two meet? In the senior citizens group at church. I had gone there mostly because my daughter, who lives in another state, insisted. She said I needed to get out of the house, meet new people. We were driving toward her neighborhood. Traffic was light, and Mr. Antonio seemed to need to talk. Are you a widower? I am. My wife, Mrs. Francisca, passed away 4 years ago. Breast cancer. We were married for 41 years. Wow, that's a long time. It is. And look, I'm not going to lie. They were good years. Francisca was a hard-working woman, a good mother, a good wife. We had 2 children, raised them right, saw them graduate, get married, have grandchildren. And after she passed away, Mr. Antonio was quiet for a few seconds, looking at the flowers on his lap. Man, it was awful. 41 years, sharing everything with one person, and suddenly you're alone. The house felt too big. The silence felt too heavy. I didn't even know how to make a cup of coffee properly because she took care of those things. How did you get through it? Oh, my son, I don't know if I got through it. I learned to live with the longing. The first 2 years were the worst. My daughter even tried to convince me to move in with her, but I was stubborn and said I didn't want to bother her. We stopped at a traffic light. Mr. Antonio continued. That's when I started going to the senior citizens group. At first, I went just so I wouldn't be home, but little by little, I started to like the activities, the outings, the conversation, and that's where you met Mrs. Consuelo? Exactly. The first day I saw her, I thought, wow, what an elegant woman. She was wearing a navy blue dress, her hair was neatly done, and she had a very polite way of speaking, but I didn't have the courage to approach her. Why not? Oh man, I was 64 at the time, and I thought things like falling in love were for young people. Plus, I felt like I was betraying Francisca's memory. It was interesting how this theme of guilt appeared in so many different stories. And what changed? It was on a trip the group took to the coast. On the bus, the only empty seat was next to her. We talked the whole trip. I found out she was also a widow of 5 years, that she had 3 children, that she liked to read, that she crocheted. His smile grew as he told the story. And then we started talking more at the group meetings, and then I started calling her at home just to see how her day was. She started doing that too. One day, she invited me to have lunch at her house on Sunday. And did you go? I went, trembling with nerve. I bought a bottle of pop, some chocolates, and I dressed up like I was going to a party. When I got to her house, what a luck, she cooks just like my mother used to. And did anything happen at that lunch? Mr. Antonio blushed. Oh man, you're too curious. But I'll tell you anyway. At the end of the lunch, we were talking in the living room, and out of
nowhere, she took my hand. I got more nervous than a teenage day. I held her hand too, and we stayed like talking, holding hands, like two young sweet. We arrived street, a simple, well-kept house, plants on the porch. Mr. Antonio, can I ask you something? Don't you feel guilty about being with someone else? He thought. Look, Rodrigo, at first I did. Felt like I was betraying, but you know what made me
change my mind? My daughter herself. She came to visit, met Consuelo, and said something I'll never forget. What was it? She said, Dad, Mum loved you for 41 years. After all that love, would she want to see you lonely and sad for the rest of your life? Or would she want to see you happy again? I felt a shiver. It was the same message that Mrs. Socorro and Julio had given me, each in their own way. And then I understood that loving again doesn't erase the love I felt before. They're different things that can coexist in the same heart. Mr. Antonio got out of the car, straightened his flowers, and picked up the gift box. What's in the box? A ring, he said, blushing again. I'm going to ask her to be my official girlfriend tonight. Seriously? That's great. Yeah, at 65, I'm going to have an official girlfriend. He laughed at the situation. Mr. Antonio, good luck. I'm sure she'll say yes. I hope so, my son. I hope so. Before walking away, he came back to the car window. Rodrigo, you seem like a good young man. I don't know what problem you're facing, but I want to tell you one thing life has taught me. It's never too late to start over. Never. I stayed there for a few minutes, thinking about the incredible human capacity to start over. Mr. Antonio, at 65, had found the courage to love again after 4 decades of marriage, and I, at 38, was wanting to give up on everything. 5th ride of the night. More than half of my last shift was already over. It was past 1 in the morning when I accepted the 5th ride. It was in a neighborhood I didn't know very well, toward the outskirts of the city. The passenger's name was Camila, 19 years old according to the app, and the destination was the airport. It seemed like it was going to be a night of many goodbyes. When I arrived at the address, I saw a very young girl on the sidewalk with a small suitcase and a face that showed she had been crying. Even in the dark, I could see her eyes were swollen. Are you Camilla? That's me, she answered with a choked voice, getting into the car. To the airport, right? Are you traveling? I am, to another city. I could tell by her tone that it wasn't a happy trip. Camilla was a beautiful girl with dark, curly hair, but she had a sadness in her eyes that reminded me of myself. Are you okay? You seem a bit upset. She started to cry, soft. Sorry, it's complicated. Do you want to talk about it? Sometimes it helps. Camilla wiped her tears with the back of her hand. You're not going to believe my life story. Try me. I've heard so much tonight. She gave a sad little laugh. I'm adopted. Or rather, I was adopted. I just found out I have a biological family, and that, man, it's a lot. As we drove toward the airport, Camila began to tell a story that gave me chill. I was adopted when I was 2. My adoptive parents are wonderful people. They raised me with so much love, never hid that I was adopted.
Always treated me. And what happened now? 3 months ago, a woman showed up at my house looking for... She said she was my biological, real mom. She said she had been looking for Camilla paused, compose her. Then she told me the real story. My biological mom was named... She was only 16 when she got pregnant. The father, biological, was a married, much older man who didn't take any sponsors. And
your mom? My biological grandmother kicked her out of the house. She said it was a disgrace to the family. My mom ended up living on the streets, pregnant with nowhere to go. I felt a pang in my heart hearing that. What a terrible situation. Yeah, according to my aunt, my mom managed to have me in a public hospital here, but she had no way of raising me. She was begging, sleeping in shelter. That's when she made the hardest decision of her life, to give you up for adoption. Exactly. She handed me over to my adoptive parents when I was 2. My aunt said my mum cried for days, but she knew it was the best thing for me. We stopped at a traffic light. Camilla continued, you know what hurts the most? My aunt told me that my mum never forgot me. Every year year on my birthday, she would light a candle for me. She saved money and bought me a gift she could never give me. Wow, Camilla. And where is she now? Camilla's crying intensified. She died, Rodrigo. She died 2 years ago.
Cancer. And I didn't even know she existed. Heart. Another story of loss, but this one was different. It was the pain of discovering a love that had always existed but could never be lived. How are you dealing with that? It's a crazy mix of, I'm happy that she loved me, that she didn't abandon cruelty, but I'm sad I never got to know her. And I feel guilty for having been happy with my adoptive parent. She was suffering. But Camilla, hey.
Child, you couldn't have known. I know that rationally, but my heart hurt. And why are you going to another city? Because I found out I have more family there. My aunt told me I have 2 biological siblings on my mom's side. They live there with my grandmother, the same one who kicked my mom out of the house. And how do you feel about that? Man, it's confusing. On one hand, I want to meet my siblings. On the other, I'm angry at this grandmother who abandoned my mom when she needed her the most. We arrived at the airport entrance. Her flight was at 6 a.m., but she said she preferred to wait there. Camilla, can I tell you something? Your biological mom made the biggest show of love a mother can give. She gave up her own happiness to make sure you had a better life. You think so? I'm sure of it. And you know why? Because my wife, my late wife, always said that the greatest love isn't the one that holds on, it's the one that lets go when necessary. Camilla looked at me through the rearview mirror. You lost someone too? I did, a few months ago. And how are you dealing? It was ironic to be comforting someone when I myself was destroyed inside. I'm still learning, but talking to you and other people tonight, I'm realizing that losing someone we love doesn't mean the love ends. It just transforms into something else. Camilla got out of the car and grabbed her suitcase. Rodrigo, thank you so much for the conversation. You helped me see things differently. I want to thank you too, Camilla. Your story touched me a lot. Before entering the airport, she came back. You know what else? Now I understand why my adoptive parents were always so special to me. They knew the story, they knew my mum loved me, and they wanted to honor that love by taking good care of me. And there you have it, folks. By this point, you're seeing the pattern, right? Every person who got in my car that night was showing me that true love doesn't die, it transforms. The story is coming to an end, but there are still 2 surprises that will give you chill. If you're identifying with anything so far, stick with me, because what's next might change your perspective on everything. It was almost 3 in the morning when I left the airport. My shift was coming to an end, and for some reason I couldn't explain, I didn't want it to end anymore. Each conversation that night had planted something in a small seed of hope that I thought had died with. Leticia, the app, buzzed. 6th and final ride of the night. The passenger's name was Dr. Edward, and the pickup location was the local general hospital, the same hospital where Leticia had worked, where Marina worked. When I got there, I saw a man of about 50 with graying hair, a white lab coat, and a look of complete exhaustion. A doctor, obviously. Dr. Edward? That's me. Rodrigo, right? Thanks for coming to get me. I need to go home. He got in the car with the heavy air of someone who had just left a very difficult shift. Tough shift, doctor. Man, it was terrible. We lost 3 patients today. One of them was a 7-year-old child, a car accident. My heart tightened. I thought of Leticia, of how upset she would get when she lost patients, especially children. That must be so difficult to deal with. It is. 25 years in medicine, and I still haven't gotten used to it. Every life that is lost is a piece of us that goes with it. Dr. Edward was silent for a few
minute. Then he started to talk, almost as if he were venting. You know, Rodrigo, something happened that left me very tense. Family came into the hospital, desperate, because the father had had a heart attack. We managed to save him, but it was by... That's good. But what struck me was the door. A young woman, a nurse, who worked here at the hospital. When she found out her father
broke down. She cried like a child. Something in my chest started to race. And why did that strike you? Because she reminded me of a very sad case I followed a few months ago. A young nurse who died in a car accident, one of the most beloved people at the hospital. My breathing started to get irregular. What was her name? Leticia Santos, an incredible young woman, always with a smile on her face, even on the most difficult day. I pulled the car over to the side of the...
My hand shaking. Dr. Edward, Leticia was my wife. The silence that followed seemed eternal. Dr. Edward leaned forward, looking at me through the rearview mirror. God, are you Rodrigo? Leticia's husband? I am. Man, I'm so sorry. Leticia talked about whenever she had a break, she'd show me your pictures, tell me stories. She was in love with you, beautiful. Started to. After months of avoiding talking, here was someone who knew.
Leticia, who had worked with her, who had seen her love for me up close. How was she in the last few days before the accident? Dr. Edward thought for a moment. Rodrigo, can I tell you something? In the last week before the accident, Leticia was radiant, happier than I had ever seen her. Why? She had a surprise for you. She didn't tell me what it was, but she said it would change your lives for the better. My heart raced. What surprise? I don't know. She was very private about some things, but I remember she spent the whole week whispering into her phone, making mysterious calls, leaving work early whenever she could. Dr. Edward paused. Rodrigo, there's something I need to tell you. On the day of the accident, Leticia had left the hospital early. She said she had something very important to take care of before she went home. What was it? I don't know, but she had a folder in her hand, some papers, and she was nervous, but it was a good nervousness, you know, like someone who's about to share good news. Do you know what those papers were? I have no idea, but I'm almost certain that the surprise she had for you had something to do with it. I started driving again, but my mind was racing a mile a minute. What could this surprise be? What papers was Leticia carrying on the day of the accident? Dr. Edward, is there anything else you remember? There is. Leticia mentioned to me once that you two had been trying to have children for a while. Do you think it wasn't that? My world fell apart. Was Leticia pregnant? Was that the surprise? No, doctor. She took a test the week before the accident. It was negative. Then I don't know what it could have been. We arrived at Dr. Edward's destination. Before he got out, he handed me a card. Rodrigo, this is my personal number. If you want to talk about Leticia, or if you need anything, give me a call. She was special to all of us at the hospital. Thank you, doctor. Truly. And Rodrigo, Leticia wouldn't want to see you like this, destroyed. She'd want to see you living, honoring the memory of the love you had. It was the fourth person that night telling me the same thing. Dr. Edward got out of the car, but before walking away completely, he came back to the window. Oh, Rodrigo, there's one person who might be able to help you understand what Leticia's surprise was. The head nurse of our department, Mrs. Mercer. She and Leticia were very close. If anyone knew her secrets, it was her. I stayed on the street for almost 10 minutes after he left, processing everything I had heard. Leticia had a surprise for me, something that would change our lives for the better. What the heck could it be? I looked at the clock, 3:47 a.m. My shift was officially over. It was time to go home and do what I had planned to do. But something had changed. The 6 people who had gotten in my car that night had planted something in me. A painful curiosity, but curiosity.
Nonetheless, I needed to know what Leticia's surprise was. Maybe it was worth waiting one more day. I got home at 4:30 a.m. The rope was still there in the bedroom, waiting for me. But for some reason I couldn't quite explain, it no longer held the same pull. I made a cup of coffee. The first cup I had made willingly in months, and sat on the balcony apartment to process everything that had happened. Mrs. Socorro showing me a possible start over at 70.
Julio teaching me that we can choose how to respond to what happens to her. Marina sharing with me the weight of her guilt and showing me that forgiveness is a process. Mr. Antonio discovering that it's never too late to love again. Camilla helping me understand that true love transforms but never dies. And Dr. Edward giving me the missing piece to the puzzle of my pain. At 7 a.m., I called the general hospital and asked for head nurse Mercer's shift. They said she arrived at 8 a.m. I took a shower, got dressed, and went there. Mrs. Mercer was a woman of about 55, with grey hair and that maternal way typical of old-school nurses. When I introduced myself as Leticia's husband, her eyes filled with tears. Rodrigo, my son, how are you? I'm surviving, Mrs. Mercer. Leticia talked so much about you. Come, let's talk somewhere more private. We went to a small room at the end of the hall. Mrs. Mercer offered me a coffee and sat across from me. Rodrigo, what brings you?
Here, I told her about the conversation with Doc, about the surprise Leticia preparing. Oh, Mum, she sighed. I knew that sooner or later someone would come looking for you about. You know what it is? I do, and you deserve to know too. Mrs. Mercer got up and went to a cabinet from which she took out a fold. Leticia asked me to keep. She said that if something happened to her before she could tell you, I should should give it hand tremble.
As I took the folder, inside were several papers, bank statements, payment receipts, architectural plans, and a sealed letter with my name on. What is all this? Open the letter first, Rodrigo. With trembling fingers, I opened the envelope. The handwriting was Leticia's, that cursive handwriting I knew so well. My love, if you're reading this, it means something happened to me, and I couldn't tell you in person about the surprise I was preparing. Forgive all the secrecy, but I wanted it to be a real surprise. Rodrigo, 3 months ago I found out we inherited my grandmother's house on the coast. Remember I told you she had a small, simple beach house where I used to spend my childhood vacation? Well, she left it to me in her will, but we only found out now because there was a legal fight among the heirs. Over the past few weeks, I've been going there on weekend, lying and saying I was working an extra shift, to fix up the house. I hired a builder, bought materials, painted walls, fixed up the garden. I spent all our savings on it, but it was worth it. The house is beautiful. It has a view of the sea, a big yard where we can have a garden, and 3 bedrooms. One for us, one for an office, and one for our future baby when God decides to bless our family. The surprise was to take you there this weekend and tell you, honey, how about we move here? You can work as a rideshare driver here too. I can get a job at the local
hospital. We can live a quieter life, right by the sea, away from the stress of the big city. I know it's a radical change, but I dreamed of waking up to the sound of the ocean, having coffee on the porch, watching the sunrise, raising our kids in a more peaceful place. If something happened to me, I couldn't tell you this in person. I want you. The house is yours. Everything is paid for. The paperwork is in order. If you want, go there. If you don't, sell it and use the money to start your life. But don't give up on living. Don't give up on being. Don't give up on loving again when the time comes. I love you more than anything, and that's exactly why I see you, even if it's without me. Live for both of us. Live for both of us with all the love of your Leticia Pia. In the bedroom closet of the house, one more surprise. When you look in.
The blue box on top of the wardrobe. It's something I bought thinking about our future together. I finished reading the letter, completely destroyed and rebuilt at the same time. Leticia wasn't pregnant, wasn't hiding any illness, wasn't planning on leaving me. She was planning our life together in a better place. Mrs. Mercer, did you know all this? I did. I even went there with her once to help choose the wall color. Rodrigo, you have no idea how happy Leticia was. She said you two were going to be the happiest couple in the world living by the beach. I looked at the house document. Everything was in order. Everything was legal. Leticia had spent all our savings, but she had managed to leave me a new beginning as a gift. What are you going to do, my son? For the first time in months, I managed to smile for real. I think I'm going to go see my house. I left the hospital with the folder under my arm and my heart, for the first time in months, beating with hope instead of pain. I called my mom the first time I had called her in weeks. Rodrigo, my son, how are you? Mom, I need to tell you a story. Do you have time? I have all the time in the world for you, my son. I told her everything. The despair of the night before, the 6 people who got in my car, the discovery about Leticia and the house. My mum cried with me, laughed with me, and in the end, she said, Rodrigo, your father always said that God writes straight with crooked line. I think tonight he was showing you that you still have a lot of living to do. 2 hours later, I was on the road to the coast. The house was on a quiet street, 3 blocks from the main beach. When I got there and saw the place, I couldn't hold back the tears. It was exactly as Leticia described in the letter, a simple but cozy little house, painted light blue, with a porch that overlooked the sea. The garden was in bloom, with plants she had chosen and cared for with love. I entered the house using the key that was in the folder. Each room had the mark of Leticia's love. In the living room, there was a picture of us on our honeymoon. In the kitchen, the spices she liked to use. In the bedroom, on top of the wardrobe, there was a blue box. Inside the box, wrapped in tissue paper, was a yellow baby shoe and a note for our future son or daughter who will be born in this blessed house with a view of the sea and so much love from Mommy and Daddy, Mommy Leticia and Daddy Rodrigo. I broke down. I cried all the tears I hadn't cried in the last few months. I cried out of pain, out of longing, but also out of gratitude. Leticia hadn't left me alone. She had left me a path. 3 days later, I went back to the city just to pack my thing. I sold our apartment, donated Leticia's clothes, except for one one shirt I kept forever and moved permanently to the coast. Today, 6 months after that night, I wake up every day to the sound of the ocean. I work as a rideshare driver in the area. Life here is slower, more peaceful. I have time to think, to process, to heal. I won't lie to you, I still miss Letitia every day. I still talk to her sometimes when I'm alone on the porch watching the sunset. I still have difficult days when the pain in my chest feels like it was just yesterday that I lost her. But I learned something that night that changed my perspective forever. The pain of loss is not something to be overcome. It's something to be carried. And when we carry it with purpose, with gratitude for what we had, it transforms into something different. It doesn't stop hurting, but it hurts in a way that honors what was lost. You know what else? I started talking to my passengers here too, and I discovered that everyone has a story, everyone has a pain, everyone has a lesson to teach and to learn. Every ride is an opportunity for human connection. Last week I picked up an 80-year-old man who was going to visit his wife's grave. He told me they had been married for 50 years when she passed away, and that every month he came to talk to her, tell her the news, ask for advice. At the end of the trip, he told me, "My son, true love doesn't end with death. It just changes its address." Yesterday, a young single mother got in my car crying because she had just lost her job. During the ride, she told me all the dreams she had for her 2 small children and how lost she felt, not knowing how she was going to support them when we arrived at her destination. Besides not charging her for the ride, I gave her the contact for a friend who has a local motel and was looking for a housekeeper. Today she texted me she got the job. With every story I hear, with every person I help, even if it's just by listening, I feel like I'm honoring Leticia's memory in some way. She always said that our purpose in life was to relieve the suffering of others, even if it was just a little bit. And you know what I discovered? When we focus on helping others carry their pain, our own pain becomes lighter. It doesn't disappear, but it becomes more bearable. 2 months ago on one of my rides, I met Mrs. Socorro at the airport. She was returning from Europe. She recognized me immediately. "Rodrigo, my son, how are you?" I told her about the house, about the move, about how that night had changed my life. She hugged me and said, "I knew you would find your way. Sometimes life puts the right people in the exact moment we need them." That's when I understood I didn't meet those 6 people by chance that night. They were placed on my path, or me on theirs, exactly when we all needed it. Each one carrying their own pain, but all willing to share a little bit of wisdom, a little bit of hope. I still keep in touch with some of them. Julio managed to go national with his app and now employs more than 20 people. Marina started doing group therapy at the hospital and says she's finally learning to forgive herself. Mr. Antonio officially married. Mrs. Consuelo in a beautiful ceremony on the beach, and they invited me to the party. Camilla came back 2 weeks later. She managed to reconcile with her grandmother and meet her siblings, but she decided that her true family were her adoptive parents back home. And Dr. Edward, I met him last month when I needed to go back to the city. He told me he started a project for psychological support for the doctors at the hospital, precisely because he understood that we all need support to carry the pains of the profession. Each one went on their way, but all carrying a little piece of the other's stories. That's what we do when we truly connect. We leave positive marks on one another. Yesterday, exactly a year after that night, I decided to do the same route. I started at 7 p.m. and ended at the airport at 4 a.m. It wasn't planned. It happened naturally with the rides that came up. And you know what I discovered? In every passenger who got in my car, I saw a little bit of myself from that
Terrible night. People who were lost, people in pain, people who needed someone to listen to their story. And I was the person who could offer that. A 20-year-old who had just lost his dad, a 60-year-old woman who was getting a divorce after 30 years of marriage, a 35-year-old who had lost his job, didn't know how he was going to support his family, an 18-year-old girl who had fought with her parents and left home. Each of them left my car a little lighter, a little more
hopeful. Not because I gave them some magical advice, because there's no ready-made recipe for pain, but because I offered what I needed most that night a year ago. Someone who listened without judgment, someone who shared a little bit of humanity in the midst of the chaos. Folks, if you're listening to this story and identifying with anything, I want to tell you something important. There is no pain that is too small or too big. Every pain deserves to be acknowledged. Every story deserves to be heard. Every life deserves to be lived. If you are going through a difficult time right now, remember what I learned that night. You are not alone. Somewhere in the world, other people are carrying similar pain to yours. And when we connect, when we share these experiences, the burden becomes lighter for everyone. And if you are in one of those terrible moments where it seems like it's no longer worth it to continue, do what I did. Wait one more day, accept one more ride from life. Talk to one more person. Sometimes what we need to completely change our perspective is at the next corner, in the next encounter, in the next story that crosses our path. Life is made up of shifts, sometimes difficult shifts, sometimes lighter shifts. But the important thing is not to give up in the middle of the road, because we never know what surprise, what person, what discovery might be waiting for us at the next destination. And for those who made it to the end of my story, thank you for listening to me. Thank you for sharing this part of my journey with me. I hope that in some way these words have planted a little seed of hope in your hearts, just as those 6 people planted in mine. Today, when I wake up in my little house on the coast and see the sea outside the window, I know that Leticia chose the perfect place for my new beginning. And I know that wherever she is, she's proud to see that I chose to keep living, chose to keep loving, chose to transform our pain to a source of compassion for others, because that's it, folks. True love doesn't die. It transforms into care, into compassion, into a desire to do good. And as long as I can use the pain of my loss to help others carry theirs, Leticia's memory will continue to live on. That was my last shift as a man without hope. All the shifts since then have been as a man who chose to live again. And you? What shift are you going to choose to work today, a year and a half later? It's Sunday morning on the coast. I'm on the porch of my house, drinking coffee and watching the first surfers paddle out. My phone rings. It's a ride. Rodrigo, I need to go to the hospital. It's urgent. The passenger is a young pregnant woman in labor. Her husband is nervous in the back seat, holding her hand. Calm down, you two. We'll get there in no time. During the ride, she tells me it's their first child, that they're both anxious and terrified at the same time. The husband confesses that he's afraid of not being as a good father, of not being able to protect his family as he should. You know, I say, looking at him in the rearview mirror, being a father isn't about being perfect. It's about being present, about loving unconditionally, about teaching by example that life is worth living, even with all the difficulties. We arrive at the hospital just in time. 3 hours later, I receive a text message. She was born. It's a girl. Thanks for keeping us calm on the way. You were an angel today. I smile and put my phone away. I turn the app back on. A new ride, a new story, a new opportunity for connection. The shift continues. If this story touched you in any way, share it with someone who might need to hear that there is always a reason to keep going. Sometimes we are the passenger who needs a word of hope, and sometimes we are the driver who can offer it. But always, always, we are part of the same human journey of overcoming, love, and starting over.